All right, we got a hot video drop here from Creative Assembly on 8 princes and the gameplay, as well as some of the features of the princes that are coming in the new DLC. I'm going to go ahead and press play here. The first minute is voiced by the whole entire video is voiced by the lovely Wheels of Creative Assembly. As a nice ode to him, as a send-off, I'm going to let this video play for the first minute as it goes through the recaps the history of the era. This way it would shore up me talking about it, and you get to hear his graceful, lovely, bearded voice. So he's going to talk a little bit right now about the 8 Princes era, and then I'm going to go into the features and everything. So, Wheels, take it away. Take forever to talk, Wheels. Jesus Christ.
100 years have passed since the tyrant Dong Zhuo burned the capital of Luoyang to the ground, igniting the events of the Three Kingdoms period. Long after the fires of Redcliffe, the master strategist Sima Yi usurps the Cao family's fragile grip on China's throne, paving the way for his grandson Sima Yang to form the Jin dynasty. The year is now 291 CE, and after a quarter of a century in control, Sima Yang has passed away, leaving the Sima family in an intense power struggle. With the emperor's heir unfit to rule, figures of power wax and wane, and a power vacuum stands to be filled by 8 ambitious princes, all descendants of the legendary Sima Yi. 8 Princes is a brand new chapter pack for Total War Three Kingdoms, set 100 years after the Han was disassembled, bringing an entirely new starting situation to your campaigns in ancient China. With 8 new
Thanks, Wheels.
factions,
So for those of you guys who don't know, Wheels is going to be leaving Creative Assembly, and I believe he's moving on to one of his dream jobs. So we're going to get quite a few things that are changing with the campaign to hard shift gear on you guys. And we can see a little bit of a preview of what the new characters' portraits are going to look like, who's who, because we were kind of wondering, okay, which of these princes is who? And we get a little preview as to how each one of the, 3 of these princes are going to play out. If you look at the Steam page, it goes into every single prince's innate ability, the unique units that he comes with, and a little kind of an explanation of his mechanics. And we'll go to that Steam page in just a second here when we talk about Sima Wei, and then when we talk about the different, I guess, alignments, I think is what they call it. We'll talk about that in a sec, but we'll jump in back and forth that Steam page here in this video. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward here. But as we see the new reform tree that is going to be unique to this campaign, kind of stylizes things a little bit differently, right? A little bit more in the vein of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, and in the vein of the reform trees that we're typically used to, right? Where we have just a very systematic top-down or left to right, doesn't really matter, progression that things are unlocked as you reach certain landmarks or unlock certain previous technologies. This is actually very reminiscent of Total War Warhammer, Total War Rome 2. Looks very similar to that initial technology tree and how that kind of plays out per character. Also, we're going to be getting a whole slew of new units with each one of the princes, and then in addition to that, we'll be getting new units that'll be available in the main campaign, including stuff like the cataphracts, some mounted crossbowmen, which is new and fun. This looks to be like a mounted heavy archer unit, and then another looks like a minor, like a less armored version of a cataphract by comparison. It looks between these two. But here's the heavy cataphracts. Maybe that's what the two different was, cataphract versus heavy cataphract. And we can see that these guys are just going to be balls out, right? They're going to be charging right down the line. They're going to be doing a lot of damage. They're not, of course, going to be Vanguard or any of that kind of crazy stuff. But these guys are just going to be thundering downrange and into your opponent. And I'm stoked to see it. Like, I've always been a really big cavalry commander when it comes to Total War games. I remember in Rome 1, one of my biggest things was just taking an army of just purely Equites and just charging into stuff. So we're going to start here with Sima Wei, because he is actually not covered in this video, but we get to actually look over here at Fury. We can see his portrait and everything. Playstyle focus is aggressive expansion. Fury reduces unit upkeep and increases replenishment, has impact on diplomatic attitude of other factions, increases through victories and occupation options. Fury decays over time. We do have his 2 new units. This is his conscription building line, and he has access to some other stuff. Let me pop over here, and we can take a look at this. We take a look at Sima Wei, we can see that he has access to Chu infantry, assault, strong versus infantry, and Chu spearmen, anti-cav, strong versus armored cav. And we also get a little dip into his present gift ability here, which improves the recipient's character's relationship with him, his conscription military building line as well, brings higher starting ranks for new recruits, a bonus to seasonal retinue deployment, a boost to replenishment, and a reduction in redeployment costs. So we get a real big idea for how Sima Wei will be played in Total War Three Kingdoms, or the tempestuous general. We can see that he's going to be focusing very heavily on aggressive military expansion. He's got the alignments, or all the characters will have alignments. And for those of you guys who don't know, we'll see it on the actual screen a little bit here, but wealth, spirit, might, and mind are the 4 new alignments that are being added with 8 princes. And what we get here is wealth, increasing your faction's alignment with this aspect offers rising bonuses to income, trade, and prestige for wealth. Spirit is bonuses to your faction's food production, diplomatic relations, noble support, and prestige. Noble support is what is going to be replacing public order, because basically the whole principle here, it says it right here, it was largely a struggle for supremacy among the nobility. To reflect this, public order is now known as noble support. Low noble support will cause a rebellious noble-led army to spawn. So that's kind of an interesting way to do things here. It's kind of like having a WoW army just appear in your lands out of nowhere if you're familiar with Total War Warhammer. But might increase gives you bonuses to your army's campaign movement range, mustering times, retinue upkeep, and prestige. And then mind gives you your bonuses to your faction's research rate, available administrator positions, and prestige. So Sima Wei seems to really play heavily into might. Like, that seems like a native alignment that makes a lot of sense for him and stuff like that. So I guess as we take a look at more and more of these characters and more is revealed, we'll see which ones make a lot more sense for their native alignment. So let's go through this a little bit more here. We'll jump just a little bit further ahead. Oh, no, we won't. So we can see here, too, how the new court system will work, right? You can choose between either becoming the emperor and making a new empire for yourself, or the regent and keeping the current empire intact. And as a regent, you get there we go. Haha. You get diplomatic relation bonuses towards minor faction prince ranks, but you lose it to anyone who's a prince or higher. And basically the point of it is that you're trying to keep the Jin Empire intact versus, again, the Emperor, you're trying to create your own empire. And this looks like it's going to be a little bit different of a playstyle. As a whole, I'm pretty excited to see how the Three Kingdoms playstyle shakes out, especially with the starting positions of some of these characters. When we take a look at our first one here, we can see how this really plays out, and it's going to be a little bit different than we're used to, right? So we take a look at Sima Jiong, the despot. His unique characteristic is going to be control. He has access to Qi guardsmen and Qi crossbowmen. And what I've noticed that is really interesting about each one of these characters is... Actually, I want to back this up a little bit. Right to here, and we'll look at that. Interesting thing about all these characters is it's about something about their mechanic is about limiting a portion of the game that was otherwise completely open to you in normal Three Kingdoms, right? And we'll talk about that when we go to the next character even more. But the way that control works, you can see here that every turn the faction leader will generate control and other ministers will decrease it. So the more you increase your court, the less control you get. So the more you use your court to your advantage, like you would in Three Kingdoms non-8 princes, the more you actually suffer as a result. And it's very, very interesting how each one of these princes has a characteristic like that, making the game vastly different as far as a playthrough for each one. And I really, really think that's a cool way of going about this. So as your control increases, you get one spirit alignment per turn. So you can see that this guy is a little bit more in line with spirit. These are your 4 alignments here: spirit, mind, might, and wealth. There you go, a little more might, and there you go. You go all the way up to autocratic here, increased penalty from desire for higher office. You get an increase in noble support, which, as we know now, is public order, and a 50% recruitment cost for captain retinue's reduction, and a massive reduction to your corruption. So, the more that you increase your court for Sima... Ooh, is this Sima Jiong? I guess it is. Yeah, it was. I'm all over the place already. You remove opposition here. So you actually remove this character from your court, this advisor in Wang Bao, and you increase your control. So it's pretty interesting how you really aren't going to be using your court as widely, especially as if you compare this to like a character like Gongsun Zan, who that's primarily how you use your court, right? Is to really kind of get a really strong hold on your entire faction. You can see here how all this kind of shakes out. You can see exactly where Sima Jiong's starting position is, all the way over here. Very similar to Kongrong, which is over here, Liu Bei, which is over here. Gongsun Zan was right up there. So this is not anything we're too completely unfamiliar with. We're very familiar with this portion of the map. He also has a lovely decoration of leopard print pelts, something I wish that adorned my house. Also gets his cool little assignment, micromanage commandery, which does reduce his control, does give him might alignment per turn, but it gives a 50% income from all sources and a reduction to corruption by 100%. So quite fancy there. Let's jump on over to our next boy in the band. Now this character plays very uniquely as well. And again, I'm going to be saying that over and over. So with Sima Liang, we get jurisdiction. And the way jurisdiction, he also, his unique unit is Imperial Guards. The interesting thing with jurisdiction is whenever you play a Total War game, you think to expand as fast as you can, right? That's kind of how you play. As soon as you jump into that game, you go smash your AI opponent that's closest to you, you expand outward, you get your second commander, your second province, whatever one it is you're playing. And that's how you kind of steamroll the game in the early portions of it. It's not the plan with Sima Liang. With Sima Liang, you have to really kind of worry about your jurisdiction, because if your jurisdiction is low, it controls the total amount of commanderies you can own. What you have to do is you have to request cooperation from other factions, and when you do this, you increase your jurisdiction, which by that factor helps you actually increase the amount of commanderies you have. So I find that to be a really interesting way to play the game, because you're completely removing something that is a huge portion of Total War, rapid expansion. So it even says, hey, this is going to be very hard for you. We can also see his abilities. He's -1 mustering per turn, -10% retinue upkeep, -15% to corruption. Jurisdiction is gained through buildings and from vassals, secured through cooperation. Required to increase maximum domain size. Greatly increases income from the faction leader's estates. Increases replenishment and the chance to capture characters, which is a pretty cool little caveat to that, is that you can increase your chance to capture characters, which is, for a lot of people, like when you see people play Three Kingdoms, it's almost like a Pokemon game for them, because they're like, oh, I gotta catch them all. I gotta get all the really cool badass characters. So if you're hunting all the cool characters in 8 Kingdoms, Sima Liang might be the way to go about that. Now, for our strategist character so far, or one we're getting introduced to in Sima Ying, he has the ability, or the Empowered Council, which is quite interesting. Also, he starts with, or doesn't start, his unique units are Qiang Hunters, Marauders, and Raiders. Sounds like our boy Ma Teng and his army with Ma Kao. So when we take a look at where he starts on the map, though, he's the first, as Wheel says it, like probably right now as I'm saying it, he's the first character to start on the western basin of the map of Three Kingdoms. Everyone else pretty much start, the furthest west over here I think is Ma Teng, and it's like right there. So this character is going to be starting all the way over here, which is unique from a historical standpoint, because they were all like over here in history. But also unique from a Three Kingdoms standpoint, because we have never had anything start over here, let alone anywhere in this southern portion of the map. So we can see that he is, again, like I said, a strategist, 10 faction-wide, 10 satisfaction, 5 noble support, and 50% income from peasantry. But the cool thing here is, with Sima Ying, hit all of the faction-wide things here, like satisfaction, faction-wide. This applies to everyone regardless of their rank. So you can see right here, enables characters faction-wide effects in all ministerial positions. So as long as someone is a minister, they get the bonus, they give the benefit to the faction of whatever that is. So this is a really great way to fill your court with a lot of really strong characteristics that are going to help your faction as a whole. Like, I know that that used to be the way it was for certain things in a very early build of the game. If you appointed an administrator, he would give that faction-wide buff. So we can see here, Gu Yanyan, her benefits are going to apply to the entire faction. Effects from Gu Yan in this post-faction wide. 25 bonus experience for units per season, and 5% income from all sources. So it's pretty interesting here. You can see that it just kind of slots him in and out. This is the character's specific faction-wide abilities you can see right here. But I think that is a really awesome way to do things. A really kind of interesting way. It opens up with some very interesting paths. Now, Sima Lun, the spymaster, has a currency as well, and it is called Subterfuge. He has access to Jiangnu cavalry and cataphracts. Hope I pronounced that properly. Let me know if I did not. And it's kind of interesting because the character himself specializes very heavily on, well, the spy network, hence the name Spymaster. So he can use Subterfuge in the same way that Cao Cao can use it to instigate proxy wars. And Subterfuge uses that currency to kind of get that going. At the same time, and again, Wheels even says this, you can hoard Subterfuge and get further and further benefits to your spy network and how that all operates. We'll go over that once he jumps into it in a second here. But let me go over this part. So he gets stock guerrilla deployment for the entire army versus stock for just his retinue. So be mindful of that. So his entire army can guerrilla deploy, or if you're familiar with Warhammer, it's Vanguard deployment. It gives his entire retinue stock, which is pretty awesome because he's a commander, so he's going to have a mix of sword cavalry units, swordsmen. He might actually have some, I believe some commanders have access to archers. I can't remember exactly 100%, but -10 diplomatic attitude penalty with most factions. Wheels was saying that this guy only lasted 4 months in power, so was not very popular. Incites proxy wars and enables diplomatic deception. Okay, so here we go. So you can see he's focused more on mind, which kind of makes a lot of sense, less on might. 50% chance of evading capture post-battle. This is just, of course, the subterfuge itself. -20 undercover network cost when performing spy actions, and +50 undercover network cost for enemy spies. Pretty interesting. Oh, let's go back just a little bit here. I'm going to let that play a little bit forward. I want to look at, there we go. Your subterfuge represents your capacity for underhanded action. It may be invested towards performing devious diplomatic acts. Subterfuge can be gained through active use of spies, as well as constructing judiciary buildings throughout your domain. That's your kind of quick rundown on that. The plot thickens. Plans within plans. Let's go back a little bit to that. Wheels, I want to go back. God damn it. You're always hogging the limelight. And there. I just missed it. But my point still here is, as your subterfuge grows, you can see that you get a reduction to your ability to use things, -5 undercover network cost, and an increase to your enemy, +10 network, +10 undercover network cost for enemies, and 10% chance of evading capture post-battle. So, pretty interesting there how that all kind of shakes out. You get that increase further into plans within plans, which is it is the penultimate level here. 25% chance of evading capture, 25 cover network for enemies, and -10 for you. And then again, you get instigate proxy wars, which is that Cao Cao ability that we talked about earlier, as well as this. So, an interesting way of going about things here, Master of Deception. This is where you get that alignment benefit here, +1 to mind, -1 to might, and you get the big goodies we were talking about earlier. Now, it is interesting to see how this plays out because this is very heavily focused on the spy network. And these are, of course, the specialized cataphracts that he gets with even stronger defense than the typical heavy cataphracts here. So, interesting to see that a spy has access to very, very specialized, very strong cataphract units. Very counterintuitive, I guess you could say, to the way that his character plays. But overall, 8 Princes is shaking out to be pretty interesting. We've gotten a little preview here of some of the princes. We'll probably be getting another gameplay preview to go through the other ones, and I will do the same exact format of going through that and talking about them. If you want to see what those princes do, you can jump on over to the Steam page. It's got everything here already, so you can see, Sima Lun, the usurper prince, which we just talked about, the beloved governor with Sima Ying, Sima Ai, which we have not even gotten into as all, Sima Yue, the imperial overseer. So we do have more to talk about, and if you really want to see what those characters do and who they are, you can see through the Steam page here. You can get a better breakdown of alignments and how that all works, as well as noble support. But guys, thank you so much for watching here today. I just kind of wanted to dive in here and take a look at stuff. I'm extremely interested in 8 Princes. it was not the DLC I was expecting. Weapon Master 470 and I have been kind of talking back and forth about, hey, what do you think a possible DLC could be? And we were pretty heavily set on the oh man, what's his name? The campaign of Sima Liang, and how he goes pretty much down to the south and encounters, like, you know, the barbarian tribes and stuff like that. And that was kind of where our minds were. And I was going to do a big video on that. And then this came out. I was like, well, shit, I guess I'll just talk about this since it's what's going to be actually released. But I will still do that video on the speculation of that. I think it would be a really cool, interesting portion of the history, because a lot of pivotal characters have died. You look at someone like Sun Jian. Sun Jian is dead at that point in the history of the Three Kingdoms era. So a lot of characters I think would die, and I think a lot of the princes of a lot of the current warlords would be effectively the rulers then at that point. So we'll still do that video and we'll talk about that. But for right now, I just want to cover this eight princes news, get that out to you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.